with all that said, let's take our first call. Von Zoom from Ohio wants to discuss the fine-tuning argument. Von Zoom, you watched the pre-show TikTok and you've called the show. So what is it exactly you'd like to discuss?
Yeah.
So as a former apologist, now an atheist, one of the big things I did during my deconstruction was knock down the arguments that I was proposing to people and I was saying that was true. And I realized I was only accepting them because they almost sounded logically sound, but it justified the feeling of faith that I had. But I also realized, just real quick, that apologetics has nothing to do with us, me and the two of you. Like, it has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with getting getting an unbeliever to believe. It has everything to do with keeping believers believing.
Yeah. It's a defense of the faith, right? So it's a defensive move as opposed to an offensive move. Totally agree.
Right. So you're in the situation where you have required beliefs, prohibited beliefs. So therefore, you can never be wrong about what you believe. So all these arguments is giant circles. But the one argument that still trips me up is the fine-tuning argument, because what I've heard Christians say to me is, well, there's the way the speed of light is and the Hubble constant, the flatness of the universe, the way the chaotic nature of the universe, and there's still life. Like, I don't have a answer for that. Like, 'cause for them, they're saying that looks like architecture.
Mm-hmm.
From a conscious mind.
I think that's a good place to start, Von Zoom, because the fine-tuning argument is almost always expressed as fine-tuning for life, specifically.
Right.
If you're just doing this argument of, well, all of existence is fine-tuned for existence, it kind of defeats itself, because it's like, well, yeah, either existence met specific criteria to allow stuff to exist or it didn't, so if it's here, then it must have met that criteria. But the fine-tuning for life bit is where I think it really is like, okay, we can't argue this anymore. We can't have this discussion, because what you're arguing is that somehow the tiniest of dots in a sea of vast nothingness is fine-tuned for life. Are you kidding me? Are you telling me that the solar system couldn't be slightly better for life? 1% better for life? It couldn't be? That doesn't make any sense. And I don't know how I don't even know how you would determine that, right?
The way it's portrayed to me now is that it's not necessarily that, like, the Earth, they're saying that the Earth is fine-tuned for just us to exist, as in that gives a reason that, maybe we're created beings or things are different here. And that's why the rest of the universe is so different, or that's what makes us so special. It's like that's the angle that they come at.
That's fair, but then think about it from the question of just Earth. Like, we don't have to look at it from the question of the universe or the solar system. Just ask yourself the question, or ask them the question, are you legitimately telling me that the way that the Earth exists right now on October 8th, 2023, is the absolute best it could be in terms of life existing? And if you can both agree that you could make the Earth even 1% better, well, then it's currently not fine-tuned for life, is it? Because it could actually be better, right?
Like, because the big thing that I always think to, or my mind always goes to when I hear like fine-tuned for life, I'm like, I'm pretty sure this planet is a death trap. I'm pretty sure I've heard 99% of all the species on the planet that's ever existed doesn't exist anymore. So it's like, I'm not seeing that doesn't seem like fine-tuning.
Right.
Like that'd be my one go-to for not fine-tuned, but
especially
like,
if you,
the idea of like maybe, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off, but especially if you accept the age of the Earth, right? like 4 some odd billion years old, then it's like, wow, like you're legitimately telling me that for humans to exist, the Earth had to have dinosaurs roam and conquer the world for like a billion years and then die off. And and it's like, I guess somebody could say, yeah, but then we wouldn't have gasoline and stuff. And it's like, yeah, but again, you're telling me that there's not an even slightly better source of fuel out there than gasoline and fossil fuels. We know there is. We absolutely know there is. So there's no reason that we had to have a billion years of dinosaurs existing, right? So if you're taking that old Earth stance with it, right, with a creationist or a believer, then again, it just seems really easy to break that down. If you take the young Earth side, though, then we just go back to the thing we said a minute ago, which is, okay, like, sure, let's just grant this totally unfounded claim that the Earth was made 6,000 years ago, Adam and Eve in the garden. Cool. Sure. Again, you're legitimately telling me that the Earth couldn't be 1% better for making life happen. And if you honestly believe that, then I kind of don't even know where to go from there, because like that's kind of what we're all doing. Seemingly everybody seems to present this idea of, we just want to make the world a better place. And it's like, well, if that's what you think, then it can't be fine-tuned again,
But what would you have to say to the fine-tuning of like a bigger architecture to the universe?
But is there? This is the thing. Like, the way I'd respond to this, the way I'd respond to this is by saying, look, there seems to be two options. We either have this one universe, which is fine-tuned, or we have this one universe, should I say, or we have multiple universes that we're not yet aware of. Now, if we have multiple universes, the fact that we are in this universe which has allowed life to come about is kind of the puddle argument. The fact that, well, this puddle's perfectly made for me. Who was it who first came up with that? I can't remember his name. The guy who wrote Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Douglas Adams.
Douglas Adams, who came up with the puddle analogy. Well, if there are multiple universes, this one just happens to be the one that is the one that life has come up in, and I am life, so it seems like it is purposefully made for me, and that just seems silly. And the argument itself is fine, but it's saying from the apologist aspect that, well, this is specifically made for you in this vast sea of many universes is just to me just a silly argument. And the other kind of thing is, this may be the sum of everything. This universe may be all that is, or this cosmos may be all that there is. And how are you getting from that to, well, it's specifically made for life to occur? Because as far as we know, we are the only example of life in that vast universe. And that does not seem like something that is fine-tuned for the purpose, which is really important, of life occurring. So, it seems to be the exact opposite of what we're saying, if this is the one and only universe we've got.
Yeah.
If they're talking on the grand cosmic scale, that the universe is fine-tuned for life, it doesn't appear to be that way at all. It appears to be quite the opposite.
But what would you say if someone brings up the idea of like NASA or people with the James Webb, or, looking at planets that could harbor life, and what if it's showing that life is a lot more common than we thought? Like, would that be an argument?
Yeah, but even then, it's still not fine-tuned for life. When someone says a universe is fine-tuned for life, that would suggest to me that at least in every solar system, if not on every single planet that forms, life should be there. That is not what we see, even if we take our own universe into account. I forget the figure of I've read a few papers on this, and I forget the exact figure, but I think the kind of figure thrown around is somewhere in about 30% that life occurs on, potentially could occur on planets that form in the universe. I think that's right. Please correct me, people, if I'm wrong on that, because I do forget the exact figure. But this is not an example of a universe which is fine-tuned for life. If only 30% of planets that form have life on them, then that is not fine-tuning. That's quite the opposite. That's well within the bounds of something not being fine-tuned and these things occurring naturally. And you said earlier about the kind of the cosmological constant and things like that, and the speed of light, but these things are always being refined. To me, if somebody is using that argument, let's say the kind of the cosmological constant and the age of the universe, if people are using that argument, they need to point specifically to why that particular number means something and why that particular number is important. You can't just hand wave away and say, well, the cosmological constant is evidence of fine-tuning, because it's something that's constantly being refined. And, even the way we've worked it out, we've got we've got the WMAP probe, if I remember rightly, and the Planck probe, which are the two main kind of things that give us the number we have for the cosmological constant. And they give us slightly different numbers, but they are in similar kind of ranges. I think I don't know which one's which. I think the Planck one says it's something like 13.82 or 13.83 billion years old. WMAP says it's 13.8 billion years old. So they're very, very close, and they're using different kind of techniques. But they have given us different numbers, and the numbers are constantly being refined. So if you're a religious apologist and you're saying, well, the cosmological constant is evidence that the universe is being fine-tuned, you have to show specifically why that particular number you are citing gives that information. You can't just simply give a hand wave comment that, well, this shows fine-tuning. You have to demonstrate why.
So the way it is explained to me, and this is the way I used to explain it also, is if you change any of those constants even a little bit, everything wouldn't be as it is. Like that's the argument they use. That's why they say it points to like a architect.
Yeah, Vaughn. So I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that, because if you didn't, I was about to bring that up, because that's how I often hear it too, where basically somebody says like, hey, the whole universe is constructed in this way, and if you take any little piece of it and you alter it even by the slightest degree, but keep everything else the same, like it doesn't work. And it's like, well, yeah, of course, that makes sense. So think about it from this. Think about it. But hang on, Vaughn. So think about it from this perspective. Imagine walking up to a building and somebody looking at that building and looking at you and saying, if you changed one slight aspect about the architecture of this building and kept everything else the same, it would just crumble. And it's like, well, yeah, because it requires all of the current construction that we're looking at of this building requires all of these pieces to be in place. And then you ask the question, but could the building have been built differently from the beginning? Because that's actually what we're talking about. We're not talking about if the current instantiation of the universe had some slightly different property than what we know now, how would that affect things? That's not what we're talking about. We're actually building the building from the ground up. We don't have anything in front of us. This is a blank screen, and we are drawing the blueprints right now. And so if that's the case, then the argument of, well, if you just adjust one thing in a tiny way, it makes everything wrong. It's like that goes out the window, because now we can adjust absolutely everything completely at will. And if we can do that, again, because that's the crux of the argument, then the idea of this being the only possibility, again, just goes out the window, man, because it's not us just taking floors out of a building. We're literally rebuilding the building, man. So does that kind of help a little with that?
It does, because for me also in my discussions, the big thing that I always push back with is, okay, so say you're saying if we changed any of the constants, like ship would collapse. Okay, I get that. But then how are miracles possible if you're actually talking about breaking those laws?
Yeah, and that's a great point too, because the baggage that claim brings with it is stuff like that, is exactly that. Miracles are a suspension of seemingly the laws and constants of the universe, but by your argument here with fine tuning, miracles could never occur, which might actually then ultimately defeat itself if the creation of the universe by God is a miracle, right? So yeah, I mean that's an absolutely great point, man.
All right, and I don't want to take up any more of your guys' time. I just wanted a little bit of help with that. And you guys are amazing, and I appreciate everything that you do. And thank you for having me.
Hey, thanks so much, man.
Absolutely, Von Zoom. Thank you for calling. We really appreciate it. This is a something that I find really interesting. SR, these arguments that are kind of put out there, the fine-tuning arguments, etc. I just find them really, really bizarre. And it's for me, it all comes down to these are hand wave arguments, and I know you touched on that a little bit in what I was saying, but there's never any explanation given to them. It's like, oh, the universe is fine-tuned, and it always seems to come down to, well, we're here. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That an argument does not make, unfortunately. Just simply claiming that we're here, therefore the universe is fine-tuned. The universe is the way it is. And there's lots of work in cosmology now. There's lots of ideas. There's lots of different theories about there may be multiple universes. And that in itself is a conversation on its own. Because the multiple universes don't necessarily mean that we are one universe and there's another one next to us and another one next to us. There can be multiple universes within cosmology, within our own universe. The whole thing is very, very fascinating. But it's all of this stuff. What me and you and the last caller would probably call the science. Is usually vastly overlooked in these conversations, and I've had occasion to speak to actual cosmologists who are religious and who believe God did design the universe and designed it perfectly. And my question to them is, on every occasion, is, where is your work? You have great work in the field of cosmology. And they are the really good cosmologists, a lot of these people. But where is the work demonstrating your belief that God has fine-tuned the universe? Where is that in the scientific journals? Because you seem to talk about it a lot, and you do this great work in the field of cosmology, but you never seem to actually do the work that shows that God created the universe and fine-tuned it. Why isn't that there if it's so obvious to you?
Weird how that's the case, It's like all of these other fields, like, electronics or medicine or psychology, cosmology, all of these other fields seem to make predictions and then find data to back up those predictions. Theology never seems to do that, and it's weird. It's strange. It's like the the Sesame Street. Which one of these is not like the other? It's like that one's not updating with new information. It seems again, it seems like there's a lot of different problems with the fine tuning. Because one thing I always wonder is, are religious people that believe in the fine tuning, are they saying that God was forced to make the universe this way? Like, could God actually make the universe any other way? Are you limiting your God like that? Because then that's just strange to me, how then you're then later on adding on all these attributes that make your God more capable than what you seem to agree with, right? It's confusing, and it just kind of eats its own self there. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun argument, I guess, still.